Sunday, the 6th of May, 2012. Greeted this morning by sunshine, blue skies, and fresh autumn morning air. A great day for running. I headed off on my longest run ever at 9:30, half an hour late. Enjoyed the run to Wang, then headed through Wang into previously uncharted territory for myself. I headed out onto the Great Western Highway and turned towards Lithgow. The hill from Wang Road to Mudgee Overpass was tough, real tough. I knew it would be. 2.4 kilometres long and energy sapping. It was scary in parts running along the shoulder of the highway into oncoming traffic, but God bless me with only 3 trucks passing over the entire 10 kilometres between Wang Road and Lithgow McDonald's. I arrived at Lithgow McDonald's in just under 2 hours, completing my longest run ever and the most kilometres in a week as well. I've clocked around 46 kilometres. Unfortunately, no time for celebrations as we're running late for Tabitha's gymnastics competition. This caused poor nutrition recovery, no Gatorade or food for another hour. On the run, I'd been sipping Powerade, 2 sips every 15 minutes, and it seemed to keep my energy levels up. Tired and sore, heavy legs after the run. Welcome everyone to episode 11 of Running with Heart. I am Andrew Neville, and I'm on mission 231, heading towards or training towards the Sonder Monster in 2022, where I aim to run 231 kilometres of the Lara Pinta Trail from Mount Sonder into Alice Springs, and doing it for the Heart Foundation. After last week's podcast where I talked of my long runs, it really got me thinking this week as I reflected back on my long runs that I talked about in last week's episode. And if you haven't heard it, please go back and have a listen to it. Hope you enjoy it. But what it got me thinking about particularly was the difference in my mental attitude between my mental strength and attitude, I should say, and my mental health thrown in there as well. From early on, that was 2012 that I just read about. From then, training for the New York Marathon, training for Big Red Run, training for the Canberra Marathon, and then my anxiety disorder developed in July 2019. And then my change in mental belief, mental attitude, and mental health since then. So I thought it'd be a fitting time to look back at that and the changes in it, to see the comments I wrote in my running journal on my long runs before the anxiety, back when I was really feeling mentally strong and physically strong around the New York and Big Red time, and then how it changed. The comments changed immediately following the anxiety in 2019. And as I've dealt with that and I've battled that over the last 2 years, how now it's starting to improve again and I'm rediscovering my old self. And that's part of the journey. Yes, number one is raising money for the Heart Foundation and raising awareness of Australia's biggest killer, heart disease. But it's also a journey for myself in rediscovering my old self, the overcomer, and getting rid of the overthinker that I've become as I've battled mental health issues and particularly my anxiety disorder over the last 2 years. So let's get straight into the next one. So that was 2012, and to date that was my longest run ever, and first time I'd run from Portland into Lithgow as well. So this one is a couple of months before I ran New York Marathon, Sunday the 21st of July 2013. It's been a great week training wise. My first run of the week was on Tuesday, and I visited an old running ground over Garland's Hill. It's been at least 12 months since I've done the 10-kilometre trek over the top and down to Sunny Corner Road. I was keen to see how I found it with all the running I've been doing. The thought of it this year wasn't daunting as it had been in previous years. The run itself was excellent. I exceeded my expectations. I was hoping to run 5 minute per kilometre pace, and I actually nailed 4:53. I actually was able to pick up some speed heading up Garland's Peak. Legs felt great, and after the run, I didn't feel as if I'd done the Garland run. I remember in the past, after doing a run over Garland's Hill, you feel it for the remainder of the afternoon. Not this time. Very pleasing. My training is working. On Thursday, I decided to do my long run for the week, 21 kilometres. I'd chosen a course which I hadn't run on half of it before, so it was going to be new territory for me. I headed out East Portland, then along the back Cullen Road. When this joined up to Cullen Road, I turned left and began the long climb out from the railway line back towards Portland. It's probably 3 to 4 kilometre climb before it flattens out and goes into undulating terrain. I predicted that my pace would blow out to 6 minutes per kilometre during this part of the run, based on past runs. Again, like Tuesday's run, I exceeded my expectation, and my slowest kilometre was 5:15, with my pace topping a maximum of 5:19 per kilometre at one stage before again I brought it back under 5 minutes per kilometre. Running confidence is high at the moment. I clocked just over 1 hour 42 for the run. My goal was 1:45. Again in the Arvo, I didn't feel as if I'd run a half marathon at lunch. So that was July 2013. And the two things I noticed from that, looking back at myself then and myself now, back then I've run the Garland's run. So 10Ks, or I've gone to the top of Garland's and back, I believe. But yeah, I've run over Garland's, which is a hard run, difficult run. And then 2 days later, I've backed up and done my long run for the week at lunch, in between my personal training sessions, run a half marathon. In the past 2 years, as I've battled my anxiety disorder, I wouldn't even consider doing that. I definitely wouldn't consider doing it at lunch, up until more recently, as I'm starting to overcome it and fight it stronger, I guess. But I especially wouldn't have gone a hard run on the Tuesday and then 2 days later backed up with my long run at lunch. So that gives an insight as to what I was like back then. That was 2013. We're going to move on to 2014 now. And this is 29th of December, 2014. And a run I remember well. So this is a year and a bit after New York, and what we call a bit of the hangover year. I might have discussed this one before in one of the earlier podcasts. Craig and myself often talk about this one. Craig enjoyed this one. Well, after a busy and tiring couple of months, so this is Monday the 29th of December, 2014. After a busy and tiring couple of months where I've been unable to get much decent running in, it all changed today. I headed out on a 24-kilometre long run with Craig. Not something I'd usually do, 24 kilometres without building into it. But the Orange Marathon is now less than 9 weeks away, and this is where my long run needs to be at. So I need to back myself physically and commence from here. Mind you, from kilometre 16 today, I felt like I was finishing a marathon, and afterwards I felt like I'd run one. It was a tough run. I'm unsure why though. It could be the 2.4 kilometre hill from kilometre 13 that I believe is the hardest hill I've done. It could be my lack of conditioning for this distance. The last time I ran more than 21 kilometres was the Dubbo Half, back at the start of September. I also haven't done more than 12 kilometres in training, and even that wasn't in one go. So yes, conditioning is definitely a reason. It could be the lack of quality of fuel leading into the run. We'd spent a weekend in Orange for the Neville Christmas, and the last 2 meals were mainly salads. All 3 reasons could contribute in some way. It was fairly hot as well, 26 degrees by the time we'd finished. We left my place at 8:30 a.m. We headed to Cullen via Cullen Road. Then down the Castaway Highway, turning into Boulder Road, and then home through East Portland via Willowa, Laurie and Kiln Streets. Had to stop coming down into East Portland to stretch my hip flexors. They were so tight. Then I had to jog and walk through East Portland. Hip flexors really tight on inclines, and that's when I walked. We then walked from the bottom of Kiln Street to home. Disappointed with having to walk. I'm a long way short, both mentally and physically, as to where I'd like to be and should be. But there is a positive in everything, and the positive is I completed 24 kilometres. I have a starting block. Now, if I recover right, I can build on that. The Orange Marathon can still happen. So the big standout there for me, and again, this is, where we're talking 2014, end of 2014. So this is still 5 years before my mental illness started with my anxiety disorder. But firstly, again, since my anxiety started, there's no way I'd consider jumping into a program at 24 kilometres. I would build up gradually. I do everything safe now when I think about program and running. I'm cautious, and that's the overthinking part I'm talking about. So that's the first thing. These days, or not so much more recently, I'm starting to win in my mind. But especially after the anxiety, immediately after it, there's no way I would consider jumping into a program at 24 kilometres. The fact that I'm coming off the week of Christmas, so to speak, and going out in 26-degree temperatures at 24 kilometres that I haven't run for 3 months, I wouldn't do that post my anxiety. And then I think even just reading about the hip flexors going tight and jogging and walking mentally now, or mentally since anxiety, I wouldn't be strong enough to deal with possibly that happening. So, and it's interesting, I almost laugh at the comment I wrote there towards the end. I'm a long way short, both mentally and physically, as where I'd like to be. I look at that and I think, boy, I'm mentally strong compared to what I've been in the last 2 years. And here I am saying I'm a long way short. So it's, yeah, interesting, the time change and the difference having the anxiety makes to your mental approach. Okay, we're going to jump ahead to 2018 now. 2018 as we look at another long run. So we're getting closer. We're within a year of my anxiety developing, but still no sign of it, obviously, because it just happened like that. And again, this shows you, again, how I'm comfortable, confident with my running. Sunday, the 25th of November, 2018. My 24-kilometre long run today was 3 by 8 kilometre loop. Great opportunity to test my pacing and give myself a drink gel station at home. The first loop was the toughest, and I experienced an upset stomach early on that required a stop at the toilets at the 6 kilometre mark. Besides this minor setback, the whole run itself was most enjoyable. It was possibly the most comfortable 24-kilometre long run in a long time, perhaps ever. It went by so quickly, and I managed an average pace of 4:56 per kilometre. Without a toilet stop and 2 by 1 minute gel stops, I think I would have recorded another 4:50 per kilometre pace. I'm very pleased with my progress. So at this point, 2018, I'm training towards the Canberra Marathon, aiming for a Boston qualifier. So I'm really knuckling down. Probably the hardest, strictest marathon training I've probably ever done. And again, I look at the confidence in myself saying, I've gone out doing 8 kilometre loops. I'm running sub fives. I don't think I've run a sub 5 on a long run since my anxiety. And the thought of it, I remember during this period, I was constantly going out for what we would call an absorption run, which is a lower intensity run, more of an easy run. And so those runs you would generally run around anywhere from a minute to a minute and a half slower than your goal pace. Now, my goal pace for the Canberra Marathon that I was training for was around 4 minutes 20. So that meant these absorption runs, and especially the long runs, the training pace could have been anywhere from 5:20 to 5:50, and here I was running 4:50s, sub fives comfortably, and that was the confidence building, and had no fear whatsoever with the way I was tackling it hard, and how that was going to change within about 8 months. Okay, Sunday the 27th of January 2019. So this now is 3 months, less than 3 months to the Canberra Marathon, and less than 6 months to what I say where my life changed as the anxiety developed. Delighted with my long run this morning. I completed the whole 27 kilometres, and the last 2 kilometres was at race pace. Overall, I came in under 5 minutes per kilometre. So again, the distance has gone up. I'm running 27 kilometres, 15 short of the marathon pace, or the marathon distance, and I'm running sub fives. My mental approach was positive throughout, and I practiced just focusing on the kilometre I was running, not the ones to come. I completed the 27 kilometre on my Canberra simulation course, designed with loops similar to Canberra, which continually run past the finish line. It is mentally tough, and today it was the first day I've completed it as planned. A really good step forward today on my journey towards Boston. So again, I'm doing race simulations, trying to mimic the course I'll be running in Canberra, and running it strongly, running with confidence. And then we move ahead. So ran Canberra, and that's probably another podcast where I ran my best 32 to 35 kilometres at sub 4:20 pace, absolutely nailing my goal, and then hit the wall, bam, and had the long, slow walk back to the finish line the last 2-3 kilometres. But anyway, another podcast, another day. So this is post that now. Jump back just a bit here. So after Canberra, my next goal race was the M7 Marathon for another Boston qualifier. So this is, where are we in? May 2019, the 19th of May. 37 kilometre long run to Lithgow. Goal pace was 5:54. Portland to Lithgow via the Boulder Road, Castlereagh Highway, Great Western Highway, and then behind the tourist office, Frero, up to the blast furnace and back to the footy oval. I used to run walk method to keep me fresh. 4 gels, 60 minutes, and then an hour 50, 2 hours 40. That does make sense. An hour 50, 2 hours 40, and then 3 hours 20, so right before the end. Powerade was in between. Felt good afterwards. So that was probably my first long run back after Canberra, so I had a few weeks off, hence the run-walk method to ease into it. But yeah, ran without a care in the world from Portland to Lithgow along all the highways. It's something I stopped doing once the anxiety took over in July 2019. So this next one is in June, 2nd of June, 26 kilometres at marathon pace. I felt really good. I set out not knowing how long I was running for, as I was waiting for Monique to come by on her way to Lithgow. I thought maybe I'd run 7 to 8 kilometres. So I set out from Portland. I remember this one clearly, running towards Lithgow, knowing Monique was heading towards Lithgow for some shopping, and it was approaching dark. So I've left at 4:15, I've written here, and so I thought I'd be picked up in 7 to 8 kilometres. So I thought I'd just run at marathon pace. So my goal pace was the 4:20, 4:30, and so I thought I'd be had a hand of that because I was only doing 7 to 8 kilometres. In the end, I ended up running 18 kilometres at 4:38 pace. But again, no worries, no anxiety going out to run the long run. It was like do the marathon pace, and yeah, not a care in the world for that. So then, a month later, as I've spoken about before in earlier podcasts, I think it was episodes 3 and 4, if you want to go back and listen to them, where I had vestibular neuritis and dizzy spells, which led to anxiety developing, which I've battled since then. So this is the Sunday, 10th of November, a few months after the anxiety developed. Enjoyed the trail run. It was a 13.4 kilometre trail run down in Katoomba. Took an hour 43. Enjoyed the trail run. Quads, groin and hamstrings tight by evening. More stairs than I'd planned. Great leg conditioning, great marathon prep. The idea of Canberra Marathon is toying with me, with entries opening this week. I'm not keen to go back down though for a whole weekend, and it's right before the planned trip to the USA. I think it's more than the thought of the last 2 marathons, not finishing them strongly. I remember standing beneath a tree a kilometre from the finish line in Canberra this year, cup in hand, debating could I get to the finish. I'm keen to have a strong finish. I'm now thinking of the Orange Marathon at the start of March. It saves not having to go to Canberra. It's not an accredited course for Boston, but that's okay at this point. It's one I've done 3 times and one I did as my second marathon in preparation for New York in 2013. It will give me a good indication of where I'm starting from on my new marathon journey. It also is well placed, as if I'm going to do all the training with Craig in his prep for a 50k race that's 4 weeks before. It's good signs that I'm considering this, but it does scare me, committing to a marathon. But at the same time, I want to start thinking of myself as a marathoner again. It would be good to give me something to focus on and something sooner rather than later. So there, it's my first time I'm actually thinking about going long in races again, returning to the marathon. So a good step forward in that anxiety journey. But you can see the difference there with the ones before the anxiety started. I'm running at this, the sub 5 pace. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm running at lunch. I'm running 2 days apart. And then this one, it scares me just to commit to a marathon. Forget the training, just committing to I'm going to do a marathon. But I want to start thinking of myself as a marathoner again. And it's taken this long. Like I'm 19 weeks into my journey now. It's taken this long to really start getting myself to believe, one, I'm a marathoner, but I'm also an ultra marathoner again. So, yeah, good steps forward there. So then we jump to December in 2019 as well. So we're 6 months after the anxiety began. And a comment I've written leading into a Sunday long run. Although I complete the run like Garland's today, I still have anxiety towards my heart's not up to it, or I'm doing too much. Have to really focus on changing that mindset. I do wonder today if that is the reason behind not committing to an event, the fear of serious training. Although I'm doing the big sessions, perhaps my mind sees it as race commitment equals officially big sessions or training too hard. It's frustrating. I'd love to be able to jump into training without 101 thoughts racing through my head, questioning how I am. Is it safe to train? Am I doing too much? Can I handle it? And then a couple of days later, when I did the Sunday run, I didn't do the Sunday run. I've written down rest day. I missed my 36-kilometre run as I'm so tired from yesterday. Bed was 1:30 a.m. following the carols by candlelight and felt sluggish all day. The smoke was very bad, that's from the bushfires that were happening at the time, and it would have made running 36 kilometres impossible and dangerous health-wise. I do have to make sure mentally I don't see missing the run as a cop-out because I was doing it on my own. My body was tired before the 1:30 a.m. night. Physically, I could not have done it. So there I'm aware of my mind trying to play games with my head to convince myself that I'm not up to running, or I shouldn't run because it's not safe to, or because I don't have a running buddy on that day to run with. My mind's aware of it, so it's thoughts that are going through my head at that point. Okay, so then we jump ahead to 2020. And this is a year after the anxiety, but a battle I'm still continuing at this point. And this is looking back a week in review. As I end another week, I question how much my anxiety is holding me back still. As Sunday long runs approach, I can feel my anxiety rising, and I start questioning myself. Am I doing too much? Is 35 kilometres too far? I've come a long way since July last year. The Orange Marathon was a huge turning point in early March, but it's still there, still simmering. How much is it holding me back? Is it why I dismissed 100 Ks? Well, I never do 100 miles. All because of my anxiety? It's the only thing that's really changed in my mindset over the past 18 months. It's like I see, say, UTMB, Ultra Trail Mont Blanc, which is one of the peak ultra trail races in the world, and I think that'd be good to have a crack at, and then, oh, that's right, I can't do that. Why not? Why is it this way of thinking? I have to keep working on beating the anxiety. I'm not sure if it's risen because I started reading Outrunning Demons and some of the stories got my mind ticking over again. I don't know it's because I reread Anxious for Nothing, a book I read during my anxiety last year, or is it because it's almost 1 year since it all happened? God led me to the back common gate the other week, and I heard step outside your comfort zone. Not stop outside. Step outside your comfort zone. I maybe have to run in the common twice. I may have run in the common twice at the most since then. Instead, returning to the road, but running more frequently, and that's a good thing. So I was questioning, getting frustrated with the anxiety, how it's stopping me committing, and this is where the overthinker that I've become came into it, where previously, before the anxiety, as those long runs sort of indicated, I'd aim for anything. I'd aim for the sky, and I'd train hard to do that. I'd train 2 days apart. I'd run at lunchtime, a half marathon, and then since anxiety is like, too hard, too dangerous, won't do. Sunday the 28th of June, 40k long run with Craig. I've just written here, it was 3 hours 54, pace was 5:52. The knee did well. I felt on and off. The last 3 kilometres was really sore. The medial tibial condyle, lots of limping afterwards. I'm very happy with the run. It felt good to do 40 Ks. The last 5 kilometres, I feel like I'm running free, full of joy. I think it's running through the anxiety. And it's one thing I noticed with my long run since the anxiety, and as the confidence would slowly come back, and then it's sort of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, is I'd feel uptight. So say for that 40k run, I'd feel really uptight for 35 kilometers, and then it was like you could almost see the finish line, see home, and so it was like the weight lifted off my shoulders, and I'd run feeling light and happy, like I was skipping along. But for that first 95%, I'd always be uptight, tense, and the mind just going, get through it, get through it, get through it. Then we jump ahead again for another example of the long run. This is Sunday the 29th of November 2020. I cancelled my run with Craig early morning as I was way too tired. I figured I would get more benefit in the 12-hour event next weekend by more sleep than running a half this morning. I went out at 1:20 p.m. deliberately in the heat to once again prepare for next weekend's 12-hour event, where the long-range forecast is 28 degrees. I ran 10.2 kilometres. It was an interesting run. First, the feeling of achievement, as I was putting myself once again in that uncomfortable situation of running in the middle of the day, the heat. something I don't think I've done since vestibular neuritis and anxiety last year. So as I started out, I had that sense of accomplishment and that glimmer of being my old self. I also was enjoying the run in the heat, and it wasn't as bad as I'd expected. I made sure I was controlling the pace, not pushing too hard. I was also trying to keep the heart rate controlled and taking short walk breaks if it pushed above 160 for too long. Perhaps too much focus on this caused a shift in the mindset, or perhaps it was a coincidence. Perhaps it was the build-up of fatigue or an increase in heart the longer I ran. Anyway, something changed in the mind, and suddenly I was hearing all those voices from the past who have said, "You do too much, you shouldn't run in the heat, you're going to kill yourself." The longer I ran, I was only running 60 minutes, 2 laps around the quarry, the more I heard them, the louder they got. By the end, I think I'd convinced myself I'd pushed myself too hard, that I was too hot, that my body couldn't handle the overheating. I could feel anxiety sweeping over me. I tried to work my way through it, sat down, sweated, had cold Gatorade, had a cool shower as the voices kept screaming at me, and I tried to quieten them. Finally, I won by falling asleep briefly on our bed. I'm pleased and proud of my run, disappointed that I had allowed anxiety, through other people's thoughts and opinions, to creep in. All stepping stones and learning curves, I guess. So big difference there, and that's probably a really good one to compare to back in those initial first ones I read from 2012, 2013, 2014, where all my comments are confident. I did this pace, I ran this fast, I ran this run, and I did this run 2 days later. To this one is probably I won't say the best I've written, but the most I've tried to explain all the different thoughts going on in my head at the time and what I was going through. And it's like I'm reading two different journals, journals from two different people is probably a better way to put it. It's not the same person. And yeah, it's really interesting to look at. And as I said, it got me thinking about how much I've achieved on my anxiety journey after talking about the long runs last week. And that was the 8-hour run we did last week and felt good during it. Had some moments where I had to talk to the voice in my head, but I'm going out and doing it is just, a step in the right direction. So another one I want to read before we wrap it up, Friday the 19th of February 2021. So this is only 6 months ago. 6 months ago, and this is only 3 months before I started my training for Mission 231. So we're talking the 19th of February. I've been psyching myself up all week, or the last half of it, to run the Castlereagh Loop on my own on Sunday. It's been a long time since I've run it, and forever since I've run it on my own. Then today, when thinking about it, I realise that doing it tomorrow isn't going to be a big help in my preparation for the 6 Foot Track Marathon in 3 weeks. I'd be better spending 3 hours on the trails. I haven't spent that long on the trails, and at this stage I need all the time on the trails I can get to help me be ready for the 6 Foot Track Marathon. So yeah, the Castlereagh Loop is that's the one I spoke about at the end of 2014, the December, the one after Christmas, where Craig introduced me to the loop, and we'd gone back numerous times over the years and run it, and I think we got time down to around 2 hours, maybe sub 2 hours. And here I was, trying to build myself up just to go and run it. It's a 2-hour run, and I'm questioning, should I do it? Can I do it? I can do this on my own. I can do this on my own. Where now at the moment with my training with Mission 231, I've been running 2.5 hours on my own. Been running 3 hours on my own. I did a 5-hour run on my own. And then I've had Craig with other runs too, the 6 hour and the 8 hour. But yeah, doing a lot more on my own than I was previously, which is really good. And then Sunday, the 21st of February, annoyed when I woke up that I had slept through my 5:15 alarm. It was 6:05 or something. Next it was 7. Yep, fell asleep again. Today's run was non-negotiable. If I want to take part in the 6 Foot Marathon in 3 weeks, today's run has to happen. We are heading to Orange between 10 and 11, so I'm out on the trails by 8. My plan is to get a 2-hour trail run in and the 60 minutes on the road on our return tonight. Overall, I'm pleased with this run. I did 2 hours and 1 minute, 16.7 kilometers. It had its pros and cons, but I shouldn't be too hard on myself and give myself credit where credit is due. The big moment was coming face to face with a red-bellied black snake in the state forest. I handled myself really well and didn't panic. This was only 50 minutes into my run. The old me would have tiptoed my way back to civilization and home. Today I just kept on running. Super proud of that. Anxiety hit me around the 90-minute mark after doing a series of down and uphill runs. At first, a first aid course yesterday, the instructor talked about a cyclist who had a cardiac arrest after sprinting up the last part of Mount Panorama. This stayed in my mind today, and I'm disappointed in myself for it. However, I did force myself back to do the final rolling climbs at the end of the 2 hours. But the enjoyment of the first 90 minutes on the trails was overshadowed by that final 30 minutes, that constant worry. All up, 2 hours on the trails on my own in summer with a snake encounter, that's huge for me. So again, a good description there of the toing and froing in my head, where again, before the anxiety in 2019, all the runs before that I've referred to today, back in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2018, all confident, all positive, where since 2019, you can see that there's positive comments, there's negative comments, there's explanations for negative comments, there's worrying about negative comments, there's worrying about outcomes. So a real change in the mindset. And then the last one I was going to share is my 5-hour run I did back in July, 3rd of July. Sunday, the 4th of July. 5-hour long run, 40.56 kilometers. Mentally preparing to run tomorrow's 5-hour mission on my own as Craig's away. I was going to go into the state forest, but I won't on my own for that long in fear of dogs and pigs. It's hard enough to do 20 minutes in there. At this stage, I'm looking at running into Lithgow via Wang, Rydal and Lake Lyle and finishing on hills in there. Making the mental prep harder is that I spoke of my anxiety disorder on my latest Running with Heart podcast today. It was like ripping off some band-aids and reopening some thought lines I just started to shut off. It's a good step forward in my journey. Then I talk about the fuel, the hydration, the post-run and pre-run fuel. And then the run itself, I put ran on the side of the road where I could. Upset stomach before the run and first hour. Toilet stop in Wang. A fall in the mud at 90 minutes. Hurt left side and arm. Determined to finish. I didn't run through Rydal to get to Lithgow, instead turning around and heading back to Portland, but I still got 5 hours, a big achievement on my own too. So then I've written, the long run, I'm proud of this even though it didn't go as planned. I'd originally planned to run in the state forest with Craig. Because he couldn't run, I wasn't going to go too deep in there on my own, so I decided to run to Lithgow. However, I started the run with the upset stomach and then fell over in the mud at Wang, hurting my left side. I decided to turn and run back towards Portland by the time I got to the top of the old highway at the Great Western Highway. Probably a good choice because I only had a short detour through the common to make 5 hours. I wouldn't have got to Lithgow in that time. I'm especially pleased that I kept running after the fall at 90 minutes. My left forearm was particularly sore, hoping it's not broken, which it wasn't, and it would have been easy to cut the run short, but I was determined to run 5 hours on my own. And then since then, we've done the 6 hours and we've done the 8 hours as well. So an insight into my mental battle again, I guess, my anxiety battle, looking at the difference in myself and my mental approach and belief in myself, pre-anxiety to after anxiety. Hope you found it interesting. I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of the achievements I'm making for myself and the progress I'm making with my anxiety. But particularly, I'm really proud of the amount of talk that is happening in the community in regards to heart disease and the Heart Foundation. We've got 45 people skipping at the moment in the skipping challenge, which is just awesome. As I've said before, 80% of people don't do enough activity in Australia, and to have 45 people take up the skipping challenge is absolutely awesome. And it means that just in that alone, we've raised $1,000 for the Heart Foundation. Training is going well. It's been a quieter week following the big run last week, and we look forward to planning the next few weeks towards a 100k run in the build up to the Sonder Monster. But we'll talk more about that next week. Hope you've enjoyed my review of some more long runs and looking back at the difference in my progress. As I said, I'm really proud of the progress I'm making and I have made, and I can see that I am coming out of the tunnel. I'm still in there, still fighting strong, but most of all, running with heart every step of the way. Thanks for the support, everyone. Whatever you do, do it running with heart.